Alright, so restarting the computer and starting fresh doesn't change the frame rate issues that I have. I guess it's just a bad camera. Anyway, what I think would save Final Fantasy, well, it's not really in trouble. I think Final Fantasy still sells well, but it always tends to get really bad reviews lately. Um, Honestly, I haven't played many of them after 6, or 3 as it was in North America, the what I consider the best Final Fantasy game ever, just based on the stories from mainly what I've heard from others. Um, but I did try to play through 10. I played through 4, known as 2 in North America, and that one's very good as well. But I tried to play through 10, and it just seemed like a series of hallways with just some pretty graphics to bookend these series of hallways. It didn't feel like the big open explorable world that Final Fantasy 3-6 was, or Final Fantasy 2-4. Uh, it just seemed like it was all closed off. It was just you can only go one narrow path and some maybe small branching dead ends, but the one narrow path is pretty obvious. You have to go that way. There wasn't any sort of sense of searching the land or looking around. And Final Fantasy X was just a big disappointment. If that was what so many people love, then I don't know. If that's what the current generation of Final Fantasy fans love, then what were the other recent ones like? Final Fantasy 7, 8, or 9? I mean, I tried 9, and that one I think seems to be the better one of the PS1 Final Fantasies. I tried to play through 7, it just didn't grip me. But I grew up with an N64. I have no patience for PS1 load times, so that's also something that stopped me from playing. I don't like random encounter battles that I have to sit there and wait for the screen to load just to get to the battle, when the battle's going to happen every 5 seconds I'm moving. That's sort of my big problem with that kind of RPG, and I'm glad that kind of gaming is phasing out, sort of. It might be coming back a little bit, but it's kind of, if you're going to have random battles, at least be able to see the enemies on the map, like Tales of Symphonia or Tales of Vesperia. Those games pretty much follow through with what Final Fantasy should have become. That kind of game. Giant, open, explorable maps. And if you want the, screen-changing type of battle scene, this Tales games really nailed exactly what I would want from that kind of a game if I was into that kind of battle systems. I'm trying to play through Tales of Vesperia right now, but mainly what's stopping me is that after any sort of talking, they keep talking and talking and talking, and rehashing the exact same things. Oh, I don't think I should go with you. Oh, maybe I should go with you. Or maybe I shouldn't go with you. You should go with us. Make sure you go with us. Or maybe you should go back to your hometown. Don't go back to your hometown. Maybe you should go back. No, don't go back. Just maybe I should go. Maybe I shouldn't go. It's every single time you stop, they all debate about this with almost every character, especially the pink-haired girl. I can't remember her name right now because I haven't played the game in a long time, because that always puts me to sleep, going through all those cutscenes, having to read all that. And I try to make sure I read all that because I want to know the story. And those stories are usually beautiful, the Tales stories. But to get back on what the topic was, I think they should take more of a Skyrim or a Dragon's Dogma approach to the Final Fantasy series. We want giant open worlds to explore, but with those heart-wrenching stories that the Final Fantasy is known for, and the amazing, again, graphical cutscenes are necessary. That's part of the Final Fantasy storytelling. Put that much effort into it. Put that much of a giant explorable world that sort of inches you out, as you explore, and it sort of guides you in a certain direction at the beginning, takes you to certain towns, introduces you to your certain characters on the way, until it becomes an open, just completely, you get your airship or whatever that vehicle is for that game. I guess every game probably has an airship since Final Fantasy IV, or whatever game that started in. But yeah, that's what I think would solve most of the problems that hardcore Final Fantasy fans from the Super Nintendo and Nintendo days are disappointed by is we don't have that open world exploration anymore. It's just a series of hallways and random bosses, random battles with monsters, and in every section of the game, there's only like 3 or 4 different monster types, and you're fighting all 3 or 4 of them at a time, over and over and over again. I mean, that was typical of Final Fantasy pretty much since the beginning, but there was still more variety in some of the enemies that were in the large areas. But again, that's sort of the same way as Tales does, though. Again, same enemies will be in the same areas because you want to be in a area that you can level up in and not be destroyed. And not just walk around and not really care, like, wait for the load screen for an enemy that is not even worth your time, type thing. At least in those games, they allow you to see the enemy on the map before they approach you, and that's the way I think Final Fantasy should have proceeded if they were going to stick with that sort of turn-based battle, even though it's not turn-based anymore once they get into it. But he could have kept it turn-based. Just let us see the creatures on the map before they attack us, because that was so friggin' annoying. Just randomly, just take 2 steps. Sorry, Final Fantasy VI. Anyway, take that kind of approach to it, because the excuse me, I guess they call it the North American RPGs, like Skyrim and Dragon's Dogma. They lose focus on the story. Like, they have so many side quests and stuff, you kind of forget what's going on in the main story, and the main story is not really all that enticing in the first place. It's kind of like your typical, you are the chosen one going after the dragon. What more can you do to that? Final Fantasy writers are usually known for creating such bizarre, crazy, and interesting scripts. What I would truly like to see would be an Xbox 360 or whatever the generation it's going to be coming up next version, or PS3, version of Final Fantasy VI itself. Just ease us into a world. We can do that now. We have Dragon's Dogma, we have Skyrim, we have the Final Fantasy games that exist now. We have the technology and the ability to make worlds that large as they were back in Final Fantasy VI, and not just a series of little hallways in short areas that you were forced to walk down. Open it back up. Make it bigger. Make Final Fantasy big. Final Fantasy used to be the biggest game around. Like, it seemed like the world inside those games, especially Final Fantasy VI, again, Final Fantasy III for North Americans. That game seemed huge. Final Fantasy X seemed like a bunch of little hallways. Sure, it had big, giant graphics, but it was so disappointing in gameplay-wise, and exploration-wise, and character-wise, and a lot of the story-wise, except for Lulu, of course. But that's about it. I guess that's all I really have to say. That's my suggestion. Like anything, will hear this suggestion at all. But that's my take on it. That's what the Final Fantasy series have been missing, and what the American RPGs have been missing. Marry that together. Marry the story and the bizarre characters and the crazy, insane bosses and the people that you actually care about, enemies and characters that follow you and you follow throughout the story, and not forget about them and go through a bunch of side quests. Keep a bunch of side quests, but make them meaningful. Also, and make the world giant and giant and free to explore, at least after a certain point. Make you guided, I guess Skyrim guides you a little bit at the beginning too, in that sort of way. Like, make it push you through the door, guide you a little bit to what's going on, and then let you explore. That's what Final Fantasy was known for, along with its amazing, heart-wrenching stories. And I guess I'll just repeat myself if I have anything more to say.